So, so guys, we're going to go through a little bit of a hot seat tonight with James because I know James, you've been on quite the journey so far, and there's been some ups and downs. There've been lots of holidays, lots of very nice holidays as well, lots of drinking, and I just want to give you the chance, really. And I think I said the same thing to you as what I said to people who've done this in the past. I think it's important you give yourself a little bit of recognition and other people who aren't quite as far down the path as you, just give them a little bit of insight, inspiration, and just the opportunity to ask questions for you. So this is obviously just coming off the back of, I guess me and Sam even, we spoke about this earlier today. Like, obviously, our mission is to make all of you look, feel, perform your very best. And one of the things that I've got in my mind, I want this to be the best lifestyle transformation program in the UK. Like that is kind of my mission with this. And I feel that when we look at people like James, you're on that track and you're a shining example of kind of what we do. So I want to give you the chance to just unpack bits of your journey. Mm-hmm. Now, the key things that I would say in terms of before we start quizzing James are obviously, and I want you all to just make a bit of a note of this. The best possible results, they do take a lot of effort. They do take time. You have to invest in daily and weekly processes, and you have to persevere. And these are the things that I would say just from working with James. I'm sure you agree, James, that this is ultimately what has led to the position you are today.
Yeah, 100%.
Going into 2025, we'll peel back the layers and we're going to see a bit of a different animal to even what we see right now.
Yeah.
So, James, just take a moment just to introduce yourself. So it's going to be like a really weird dating agency. But tell us who you are, what you do for work, a bit about family life, just to kind of paint a bit of a picture for everybody as to what your life is actually like behind the scenes.
So, hi everybody. For those who don't know me, I'm James. I own 2 fish shops, which is a bit of an unusual career path. I was a QS for 12 years. So I've come out of the professional world and moved into food, which I've been in that for 10 years. And main idea is really to stay away from it. Just otherwise, you just can't eat fried food generally. But I used to love it. And that's, one of the things probably got me into a state I was in. So I'm married with a daughter who's 10. So we've got a busy life. A little bit easier now since COVID. I used to operate 7 days a week. So I only work 6 days now. So from my point of view, a bit easier. I don't think my wife would agree.
Also renovating a house at home, right?
Sorry, say that again?
Also renovating your family home.
Yeah, we're also having a full renovation as well at home. So might as well do everything at once.
Absolutely. And the reason why I've just asked you to explain that, James, is because you'll know as well as I do, and I'm sure you guys just listening in there, you'll relate to one or more of those things, having a very busy career, very busy family life, very busy social expectations. There's been a lot of travel as well, James, hasn't there? So there's been a lot.
Yeah, especially this year, more than ever, really. I mean, that's probably, getting into our 10th year in business.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that 10 years ago. It was more like that when we was in the professional world, and we're getting some, I'd say, like work-life balance back a bit now from a personal point of view, which is needed as well. Otherwise, I'd be divorced. So.
we said this on our last one-to-one, James, didn't we? We said happy life, and I guess that ties into the chaos at home as well with the house renovation, and that's been ongoing every single week. We still haven't got that corridor finished in the background.
We've been doing the house now. Well, it's probably, I don't know how many months I've been with you, but it's well over 18 months now. And I think the renovation's pretty similar. We started a couple of months after I started training with you. So I'm not sure which one will get there first.
I think the body transformation.
I think so, yeah, because we need.
Absolutely. So, well, thank you, James, for that just soft introduction there. What I'm going to start off by just we're going to run through a series of questions, guys. And if you think of anything at any point during this, just put Q in the chat box. And at the end, we'll give you a chance to kind of ask a few questions to either myself or James, just for any extra context. But James, from your perspective, just share with everybody, why was it that ultimately you joined the program originally?
I think ultimately, I just wasn't happy how I was looking, which never really bothered me before. But I think secretly, I was just creating this dad bod, for one of a better phrase. It's and when you're busy, it was literally just work, work, and drink and drink. And I drank every night of the week, and that was mainly stemmed from the professional world of just out every night entertaining. Um, so you'd come home and have Monday and have a bottle of red wine, and then same on Tuesday. But the nature of my job, I'm out of the house from 5:30 till 9 p.m.
Yeah.
So you're coming home at 9 p.m., you're throwing something down your neck to eat, and then you need some downtime because you're wired. So you then start drinking. Well, not always, but it was becoming a bit too much of a habit. So I think that it was just now's the time to actually change the way you look, because if you're not happy with it, you've got to do something. I did used to go to the gym, but it was just when I felt like it. There was no structure or program. It was turn up, lift some weights, go to another dinner, you know. So I think I just thought reach out to yourself for somebody, some guidance really, and I needed that help, accountability, and
yeah,
I wasn't going to do it on my own. So
I think that was the biggest things that I kind of picked up on when we first spoke. It was the structure, the guidance, and the kind of the step by step. Because
yeah,
you've been so busy, you haven't got time to think about what you're going to do at the gym, let alone kind of the overall.
yeah, I just needed it spelling out, so and then I go do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the accountability to actually do it, walk the path.
Yeah, totally. I mean, prior to that, I'd say about 5 years ago, I'd actually done quite a bit of PT with an actual PT at my house, which was good. But the downside was it was my friend. So there was too much like talking, and it was all a bit, it wasn't as professional. And I was a bit skeptical at online coaching when I first chatted with you, because I thought, well, I just expected that I would have like one-to-one PT.
Yeah.
But actually, it's turned out, it's really good. It's that weekly check-in which you need for that accountability. It's like going to the headmaster every week, but you need that. Otherwise, there's no point in progressing.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, James. So the next thing I just want to kind of unpack is like just as specifically as you can. What do you feel from your perspective were the key areas that you needed guidance with?
Definitely proper programs. Didn't have a clue what I was doing in the gym, really. So just turning up and thinking, oh, I'll just do some bench pressing, straight onto legs, no thought on the order. So definitely needed proper workout programs. I didn't actually realize that there was a fat loss phase to everything when I started with you. I just thought, right, we're just going to go for it. And it was that, preparation phase, which is so important to get right. We'll come on to it in a bit later, but you've got to nail that prep and that fat loss and get your body in that right state of mind.
Yeah.
And understanding the macro split of what I should be eating. I had no clue about all that. So I think that was the main guidance I needed from yourself. Actually spelling it out for me. And then I could trust you with that and then, put it into plan.
Great. And I think just on the guidance front, I know that me and Sam, we spoke about this a little bit earlier today, just with the program changes from actually going through the different phases. So thinking back to when you started,
yeah,
what have you learned in that perspective, and what guidance do you feel you needed, knowing what you know now? Because just to give you a little bit more context, one of the questions that got raised this week was, what rep ranges should I be using for building losing fat versus building muscle? So what do you feel like has been the guidance you needed with that as well? Was that something that you struggled with?
Oh yeah, totally. And now it's in the build phase, everything seems to be clicking into place.
Yeah.
Whereas I didn't even understand half of it probably in the fat loss phase. I was just doing the do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But now you realize why you've got a 6 to 10 rep range in the build phase, and then 2 sets, and then maybe go on to a 8 to 12 rep at the end.
Yeah.
And it all starts to click into position why.
Yeah. So you need guidance on when to push harder and when to lift heavier and when to
Exactly, yes.
when to not.
Yeah. And we've touched on this briefly this week on my RDLs. I would not push myself as much as I can, and now I've learned to, with progressive overload. But everyone who thinks it's heavy, there's always more.
There is always more. And it always looks easier on camera as well versus how it feels.
Yes. So it's just having all that, that guidance to say, like, right, no, next week you got to go for 120, and then, it's challenge accepted.
Love it. Awesome. So I think it's important that we speak a little bit about kind of the challenges that you've had. So talk to me a little bit about the setbacks and the challenges, James. So what were they and how did we go about dealing with them for you?
Okay, so this year I would say holidays has been huge because I've had 5, which I've never had 5 holidays in a year really before.
No one feels sorry for you, James.
Yeah, well, you need to do because I've had to just eat eggs. No, it's hard when you go on holiday, in terms of picking some of my holiday destinations. I've not had access to a gym. Italy in the summer, the food was just pasta, literally everywhere. There was hardly any chicken in sight, so it's hard to dial into your macros properly. And I know you're on holiday, but it was easier for my main summer holiday where I could, put the principles in place, which we explained, high protein breakfast, light lunch, then you can have a couple of courses at night time and some wine. And 2 weeks later, come back from holiday and you're pretty much the same weight.
Yeah.
You've not progressed anywhere, but you've hit the gym a bit and moved a lot. But doing that 5 times over in the year and challenging destinations has been a bit tough, I would say.
Because we've had to pivot a few times, haven't we? And I guess going on to how we dealt with them, obviously, it was actually kind of moving from obviously your training split to then moving to a temporary kind of full body,
like a hotel kind of
hotel type approach. Navigating the actual overall day was, as you say, following the staying in shape on holiday principles with the low carb, low fat breakfast that had focusing on the protein, keeping things nice and light through the day, and just banking the back end
for the evening.
And then obviously on days when you weren't tracking as well, there's the blind tracking, wasn't there?
Yes, totally.
So
which I think fast forward from last year or the year before when I weren't training with you, you're definitely more aware now of what you're eating, even on holiday. You're looking at, instead of going up for the the full English every morning, you go into the omelette station.
Yeah.
And just making some better choices. But that's taken time. That doesn't happen overnight, does it?
No.
But I think you've got to when you're on holiday. So what I'm trying to say is, you feel like you're undoing what you've done. So everyone needs the holiday, obviously, because everyone's working hard and needs some downtime. But there's no need to just go on holiday and blow what you've achieved.
Exactly. It's the mental changes as well. Like you say, a lot of people just go berserk
all in
when they go on holiday, and it's just kind of being a bit proactive where you can be, and actually, as you say, letting your hair down a little bit in certain contexts. So you can
Yeah.
enjoy an ice cream or a glass of wine every night, and it doesn't make any difference.
No, yeah. So I think that's one of my challenges, really, or probably the main challenge. Work is the next challenge. And it'll always be my challenge. Being the owner, I currently do 80 hours a week work, but invariably when you've got all my gym sessions are planned in, just like going to a meeting. And if somebody phones in sick, and we've tried every avenue of, the manager's tried to get other people, and you just physically can't. I've got to go in. I can't let my business not open. And then you're just so annoyed that that person's now caused you to miss your gym slot because I physically can't do it of an evening after a 14-hour day. I've never done it in 18 months of training with you. I've got to train early and get it out of the way. But that's not, it's pretty rare, is that, but it does happen, and it's a challenge that you've got to be aware of. And when you know that you've got a gym session, bank ahead the strong sessions instead of like conditioning. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Prioritizing the strength work.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, because you can make up the activity with normal life easier than lifting weights, can't you? So no, I love that. Very valuable, James. So I think next thing I want to kind of unpack is, like, for you, what have been kind of your, I guess, secrets of success and the key lessons that you've learned so far on your journey?
My secret weapon, I think, is my meal planner.
I agree.
For those who don't know, I do a meal plan every Monday, usually. Used to do it probably Sunday night, but it definitely comes across to James every Monday morning. And I only send it to James just for some accountability again, really. I don't, you do it, he does actually read it, but, I don't expect James to read it. But it's that thing of my breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 7 days is planned on that Monday morning. And I do the food shop, and that is done. My Mondays, by the way, is office-based mainly, with about 5 hours in the shops in the morning. So I've got time to plan the week fully, go get all the food. And you can't change what you're eating, because if you only buy what you're going to eat that week, you've got to stick to it. So I think that's been like a really good secret weapon for me, James.
No, I completely agree. Just to expand on that, guys, I'm not kidding you. Every single Monday morning, I get a timetable, Monday to Friday. Breakfast, lunch, snacks, protein, fat, carbs, all mapped out. And I guess the way I kind of analyze that is there's two things. There's one, it removes all the decision fatigue because you don't have to think, you just have to follow the plan. And then two, it is a big thing with accountability. And you're right in what you say, James. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't read every single thing every single time, but the accountability of actually doing that is very, very powerful. And I can relate to that because I think before I knew any of you on this call, the best shape I've ever been in my life, I did an accountability story selfie post on Instagram every single day through a fat loss phase. I didn't care if people liked it or even looked at it or anything like that. It was for my own accountability. That was just something that I made a habit of to make sure that I turned up and did it every single day and didn't kind of go off course. So I think that's very powerful, James. Very insightful. Planning.
Yeah, so it's also become a bit of a, my wife and daughter, they do have a bit of input, but on a Sunday, but they generally have to stick to, I'll get from my wife, do we have to have chicken again? But there's a bit of variety on there. But I think the biggest thing with food is when you sit down and work it out, you only eat the same stuff every week of your life, really.
Yeah, you do.
So we have 20 meals on my plan on rotate, pretty much. And it's the same stuff. And there's, people say, oh, it's a bit boring though. You know what you're going to eat on Friday. Well, I'm not really bothered after I've worked 15 hours because I just want to eat some decent food when I get in and know that I'm not going off plan.
I agree. I think for your wife as well, it's a good job you look a lot better now, isn't it? I think
yeah.
A bit more on board with the overall trajectories there, at least. So
yeah, at least it's progression.
Exactly.
The other things, lesson-wise, James, I'd say is couple of things, more food oriented, but hitting the protein target, I think, is mega to really, especially on fat loss phasing for guys, high satiety, etc. You just, I didn't believe it until I did it, and I was literally not hungry. You are going to be hungry. I could eat probably 10 pizzas and 5 sandwiches because there's hardly any protein in them, and it's all bread.
Yeah.
But it put a couple of tins of tuna at lunch with some rice, and I'm done, and I'm full then until I get home. There's no snacking.
Yeah.
So I think really hitting that protein target is a really big lesson. What I learned, didn't realize how important it was. And everyone says, "Oh, you hit protein when you start training," but you just think it's a bit of a buzzword. It's like a marketing word to me.
Yeah.
And also learning how to bank properly. I have had a Sunday roast pretty much every week, haven't I?
You have. It's been on the plan as well, hasn't it? It's not been like
Yeah.
a loose
And
thing. You've had chicken pies.
granted, it's not. There's certain things that are not on there. There's not like Yorkshire puddings on there, but we've had pretty much a dinner every Sunday, which is really nice to have. But it's learning how to bank for that properly, so that you can have these things. Because when I started with you, James, first thing I didn't want to do is I didn't want a 12-week for transformation. That's crash course because I wouldn't sustain it. It's got to be sustainable going forward.
I think that's been so valuable, James. I don't need to expand on that at all. And hopefully everyone's listening to what you just said there, because I think all the things that I know myself and Sam get contested with, you've just broken all those beliefs. So thank you for that.
No problem.
The next thing, so this is a big thing, and you don't really realize it until you actually start to look different. But a big thing that we actually, and I've learned to kind of realize it's really important that we do, is ultimately change your identity. So obviously you visually, you look a lot different, James. You behave a lot different. Your behavior's a lot different at the weekend.
Yeah.
In terms of that kind of identity shift from where you were back then to where you are today, like how did you deal with that shift?
It was relatively easy, I would say, in the sense of people start to notice, obviously, don't they?
Yeah.
We serve over 3,000 customers a week, so I'm seeing a hell of a lot of people, and occasionally, then obviously, it takes a while, but then just look at you and say, "Oh, you're losing weight," or you can tell in your face, and little things like that just massively spur you on. Whether it be a customer or somebody in the street, people in the gym. You don't realize how gyms are not like this scary place. They're actually a good community to be in, aren't they? And there's a lot of good people in there that will help you if you need help. Initially, when I did the fat loss, my wife was thinking I was a bit too bony and skinny, but that's just that initial reaction, isn't it? When you can feel bones. Maybe, I'm not a big guy anyway. And then dropping 10 kilos off, you could feel bones. So it's that shift of I'm changing, but then you're getting negatives in a way. Only small negatives, but she was only being honest. And it's obviously then it's only the start of your journey to then go into your build phase and feel so much better now for it.
Yeah. I always use the analogy with this. It's a little bit like if you were to renovate your house. Like it's going to get a lot messier. It's going to look a lot worse before it actually gets better.
Yes.
So easy, James. I'm sure you relate to this. If you ever have like a tiny little negative comment or a little bit of a negative phase, or say, "Oh, don't lose too much," or this kind of thing. It's imagine if you'll get so much positive feedback, especially being in this community, and look at all the people who are here tonight as well who sung your praises. But it's so easy, isn't it, to kind of focus on that one negative comment?
Yeah, and you kind of do.
Yeah.
But then it's turning that, like I've had it with friends as well, who, trying to press you out. And I was like, yeah, and I have been, all my life, I've always said yes to an invitation out and I've always drank. But now I think, well, I'll drive so that I can't drink, you know. And then you get the pressure when you're there. But then fast forward 12 months later, you're still going out with the same guys. The pressure's come off. They've accepted for what you're doing now, and they're still friends, but they've just like, they've got something else to talk about. Um, but there is pressure there for the identity, and people are like, oh, well, I think you're a bit skinny now, but they don't realize the full process.
Exactly. Just a question for you on that, just that I've just thought of. Has there been any relationships that have gotten better, friends or like romantic or anything like that, that you feel getting into shape has had a really positive shift with your identity and just the way that you carry yourself in that relationship as well? Is he frozen?
Sorry, is that for the rest of the team or me?
That's for you.
Oh, sorry. um, I would say only now, if I'm honest. Only as I am now today, Emma is really impressed with how I look. But going back to the fat loss, no, if that makes sense. But now I'm putting some size on. It's like, oh, you're filling out a bit more now. So you're not as so now it's turned into a positive. Um, and you get it with friends as well. I've got a good friend who I think he actually reached out to you last year. And I don't think he trains with you, but I think he did reach out to you. And that was purely on the back of seeing, I think, my pre-Caribbean shot, what you did for me. And he was like, wow. And he was, sending lots of nice messages. And so that was quite positive, you know. And he's realised that he needs to do something. Not sure yet if he has, but, I think he initially reached out, but it didn't happen. But that was a positive.
Absolutely. So I guess it's just staying true to the process then in terms of the shift and not listening to the negatives.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Good up, just a thick skin.
Absolutely. So I think it's important that we just talk about your long-term results. So what do you feel, and you probably covered some of this before already, James, but what do you feel are the key things that have helped you stay on track to this point?
Food. It's having like good food, you know. There's no point in just eating chicken and rice if you don't like it. Eat what you want to eat within reason. You know, reach out to things like the Chinese recipe that you do is on the vault. It's like incredible. It's just like a take on a Chinese meal at home, rather than going to get a Chinese takeaway, which is full of MSG. You can still have things and have nice food. And that makes you stay on track. I think if you just had boring food, for me, who's a big food fan,
Yeah.
I would have just shut the door within a month and packed it in. Variety in workouts as well. I know we don't change programs too often, and that's for a reason.
Yeah.
But when you've been training for a decent amount of time, it's nice to actually have a bit of a refresher, even if it's just a couple of tweaks there.
Yeah.
It keeps things interesting. And then next bit really is then it becomes addictive.
Absolutely.
And it's just your life. You've got, it depends what everyone's doing, but I've got 4 strength training sessions every week and a conditioning session, and they're just mapped in, like I said earlier, just like going to work. It's just part of your day. So I think when you get to the stage of done it for a while, like I have, the habits are well and truly in there. Recently just coming back from Iceland, and I was only there for 4 days, and I managed to train twice in Iceland and once at London. The habits are there. You want to go. That's the difference. You want to go to the gym, and you want to get your sessions in because the addiction's there.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's a few things there, isn't there? There's obviously you've made a lot of effort with your food, like to make, as you say, to make it interesting. There's been that kind of, because you've been so compliant with your training from my perspective, like you've kind of done exactly what I've said. There's been moments where we've kind of it's been clear as day that we actually need to change it because this has plateaued. And then
Yeah,
other occasions where I've reached out and say, I think it's time for a freshen up.
yeah, totally. And there's times when we've said it could be more aggressive, but I physically can't. If I've got 30 hours of work to cover when somebody's on holiday, we know that it's not going to be achievable to be more aggressive in the gym. And it's some weeks I've been about ticking boxes, you know, but the boxes have still been ticked, and we've still turned up and got it done. Um, I think also the weekly feedback videos, James. You know, I get my videos every Tuesday, and they do help you stay on track.
Yeah,
It's part of the whole journey of, you check in on Monday, you get your feedback on Tuesday, and you've got some, key 3 points, 4 points for the week to action and to focus on. As well as doing everything behind the scenes, you've got a few key areas to actually hone in on.
yeah, I love that, James. And just to kind of add to that, one thing that James has done, guys, that's made my life very easy is being very clear and expanded and given me the data to actually do a very good job. He's filled everything in. We've always agreed when he's not going to track it, if he's going on holiday and that kind of thing. And when he has, he's given me everything. He's given me context, and we've known exactly what he needs to do next. So it's made actually coaching easy because we've had a good relationship, haven't we?
Totally, yeah, 100%.
Cool. So I think there'll be a few people, perhaps not on this call, James, but what advice would you give to someone who is struggling to stick to the plan?
Well, I was thinking it was in Pure Gym when I used to be there at the Springs. On their wall is remember why you started. you
Yeah,
know, and sometimes you've got to just think back to why, because it's not all easy and simple, and you get the results. There's weeks where you think, "Sod this, I can't be asked going to the gym," but you've got to just go and get it done and remember why you started, because you weren't happy with something. We're all here for a reason, and everyone's why is different, probably.
yeah,
Um, Trust in that process is next level. I think it's until you get a little bit of a result that you need, whether it be fat loss or putting some size on, you might not trust the process as much. And I don't think I did, if I'm totally honest, until you start getting those results. And then that just helps you even more once the trust is there. I don't mean just in you, in terms of what you're telling us to do.
yeah,
You know, especially when you get into a build phase, it's like, surely I just can't eat all this food,
mm,
you know, and you feel like you're losing your definition, your leanness, but it's all part of it. So you've just got to literally trust it and stick to it, because it does come, and things do click into place later on. Possibly you might not understand on day one why you're doing a certain thing. I mean, yeah, you could ask yourself, but there's so much to it. So when you get into the build phase, you realize now why I'm eating 350 grams of carbs every day on training days, because you need the energy.
you do.
And you don't realize that until you've probably done a training day on 280 grams, and you've not managed to lift those 32 kilo dumbbells, or it's that next level. So that's kind of what I'd say to someone who's struggling sticking to it, is just trust and kind of go back to remembering why you started it.
Yeah, I love that. I think one thing I've just picked up on there, because I know there's some people in the program who are a little bit resistant sometimes to actually including and increasing carbs when told to and that kind of thing. So thinking back to when, obviously, not that long ago, when I was saying, James, we need to get here with
Mm.
this, and you were struggling to not necessarily get the calories and the protein in, but get the carbs in. Like, what have been the key things that have allowed you to do that specifically?
Oh, rice cakes, honey and banana.
There we go. Easy. So
Yeah,
when I did,
absolute game changer, honey. Bran flakes, and it's these little things where you you can find all this on Google, but it's just another level of that's what we're all here for, guys, paying for coaching because I didn't know that. I could not balance my macros 3 months ago, could I, in September? Because I just physically couldn't get to 350 grams of carbs without sending the fats above 60 grams.
Yeah.
Until honey was introduced.
Exactly. This is something that I know there's a couple of people on this call have struggled with as well. And I've always said, as you've just kind of relayed back as well, especially when you train first thing in the morning, rice cakes, honey, banana, they are your best
game changer
sources of carbohydrate because they're clean. They kind of serve purpose. Like even the honey, like it helps dilate blood vessels. It's very light on your stomach. It's fast acting carbs, and it's even good for your immune system as well. And then the banana, again, easy to digest, very predictable on calories and carbs. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, James. And
they're in the basket every week.
Absolutely. Funny what you mentioned about the quote. What was the quote from Pioju?
Remember why he started.
Why he started. There's another one, and Sam will probably chuckle when I say this, but there's another one in my gym where I train and where Sam trains as well. Nothing beats belief. It's funny, isn't it? But the gyms always have the best quotes on the walls, even the cheesy ones. Sometimes the ones that just ring true a bit better, don't they?
Totally.
Absolutely. So, last question, Sam. James. What have been your biggest wins personally, physically and emotionally, and how has your life changed to this point?
So I think the biggest win was May this year, just from a physical point of view, pre-Caribbean Cup. It was only a mini cut, must admit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think I don't know if we did 8 weeks, did we? 8 weeks. And I think that's the best I've ever looked, ever. And I don't think you should do it for a holiday. Don't think that's the right way around. But there is a goal there when you're going on holiday, so it's quite nice. Obviously, there's a bit of a target, but it's not you're not training for a holiday, you're training to change your life style, and the whole package, not just, oh, I'm going on holiday, so let's go get a six pack. It does put a bit more emphasis on it, obviously. So I think that's probably the biggest physical change that I've ever been in, and the best condition I've ever been in.
Absolutely.
Alcohol has played a part in my life since the last 18 months. So I think that is a huge win. I now do not drink apart from once on a weekend. I'm not teetotal, but when you've drank every single night of your life since being an adult, it's a hard habit to knock. And it's probably one of the best habits I've knocked for my health. So I think those two really.
I love that.
I know it seems easy, really, but I don't know if you've had many people who have drank before.
Definitely.
And it's only, it's not a drink. Well, it is a drink problem when you're drinking that much every night. Every night it's just like that. It's like medicine. You're coming home for that routine, and you don't realize. I think I didn't realize, and I didn't realize I had a problem. It's just you're coming home and that's it. Until you look in the mirror one day and think, God, it's getting away with myself now. And now it's so easy, through the week. Granted, Christmas and holidays, things like that, we have exceptions, and I do still drink on holiday. But it's a massive win, is that, to get through the week and can only drink on a Sunday or a Saturday. It's any night of my choosing, but I do try and limit, one. I've had a couple of nights sometimes when it's been busy, but it's a mega change from 7 nights. So
I completely agree, James. I think just to add to that, if you actually look at your photos, you look so much just in your face,
younger,
healthier, younger,
yeah,
less tired, just as a result of just changing that one habit.
Yeah, and I think I always said, my wife has been banging on about it for years that you do drink a lot, right? It might be a bottle of red wine every night, which I didn't think was a lot, but it's the habit. which I think is more dangerous than the actual drink sometimes.
Yeah.
And you're just constantly doing it. So.
No, I love that. Well, James, from my side, thank you so much for sharing all that.
Yeah, very welcome.
I'm sure that guys have taken a lot from that. They've probably got a lot of processing they need to do. But I do just want to come off screen for a second, just to allow anyone who might potentially have a question for James and they just want to perhaps ask your perspective on something. So, guys, does anybody, Dom, straight in there. Tom, do you want to come on camera and ask your question? You're on mute.
There you go. Yeah, what type of honey? Is it Manuka? I can't remember which one we always have. Is it a special?
Well, that is the good one, but the amount I use, no, I just get the pure honey, the
pure honey
form from M&S.
Right.
But yeah, Manuka I think is very good, but I think for the amount that I'm using, I'd have to have a holiday less.
Yeah. I think the game changer for me, I think James might have been referring to me there, is that I'm probably one of the people that doesn't like to increase my carbs or eat too much, but I need to realize, and then I wonder why I've not got any energy.
Yeah.
That's probably why.
Totally. And especially when you've gone from like May when I was at my leanest, and then you start going into a build phase in like September just gone. You don't believe it, Dom, to start with. You're like, I can't physically be eating all this food. I was force feeding myself to get the rice down, to get the carbs down, whereas honey and rice cakes is so much easier to get down.
Good tip. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think just to add to that, Dom, like I always say that the sweet spot with carbs, if you're going to start adding them in, is always, and I said the same thing to Marcus, like anything between 0.5 and 1 gram per kilo body weight either side of your training session, because that's when your body, in your mind there, I think that'll process a little bit better, because then you're like, oh well, I'm just eating this extra bit to fuel my session, and then I'm eating this extra bit to recover from my session. So rather than actually just looking just at your main meals and ending up with massive portions of food, start there and then work out. Okay. Does anyone else have a question for James or anything they want to ask?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Please, James.
Hi, Marcus.
So when you go through kind of that transition phase, when you're going from fat loss and then you're going into like build and things like that, obviously like I'm feeling like fluffy and all of that. Like how did you get over that?
Well, we've had a few discussions with James on this, so it comes back to trust, Marcus. So until you start seeing, now I'm starting to see some size on my arms and things, but initially it's just like you want your definition because you've done so well in your fat loss phase, but you've got to just accept that's just going to just slightly not disappear, but maybe just cover up a little bit. And then when you get to the end of your build phase, you're just going to unwrap it again.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So you just got to accept that you're going to just slightly cover it up for a little bit and then unwrap it.
Right. Stick with it then.
But if you don't have that energy, you're just not going to be able to push and get the gains you need.
Yeah.
It's the gains you need, obviously, to build.
As well, it makes your next fat loss phase easier because you've got more muscle, your BMR's higher, your output's higher, you're stronger. Your hardest fat loss phase is your first one because you've got the most amount of fat to lose, you've got the least amount of muscle on your frame, and you're the most unhealthy. The more fat loss phase you do, the easier it gets. And as James just said, we did an 8-week mini cut before his holiday. And it wasn't to go to shredded or anything like that. It was just a bit of a tidy up, wasn't it, James?
Yeah, totally, yeah.
And it was easy. It was plain sailing. There wasn't any fatigue or anything. It was just like visual progress every single week, right to your brain.
I think we took something like 200 or 300 calories off, didn't we, a week? It wasn't even noticeable.
Yeah.
And then straight away, 8 weeks later, you can see your abs again, and your definition's back.
Exactly.
But I think I've now got past the fluffy side of it, Marcus. Inside of now it's game on for build.
Absolutely. It's like It's
But,
like
you know, totally relate to that because I've been there and I've messaged James and said, "Oh, I feel all fluffy. I feel bloated." You know,
Oh, it's the worst. Like when you go from like the fat loss into that, I say it every week. I feel fluffy, 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 fluffy
Yeah.
every week.
I can totally relate to you, mate.
Yeah.
But
Right.
you always feel at your best immediately after training, and you've got the pumps, like you've had the performance, like you'll feel great.
Yeah.
There's guys that'll listen back to this that are exactly where you are, Max. I know that for a fact because I've asked them to come tonight and they're not here, but I'll ask them to watch the call back. But with the way you kind of got to see it, is you're basically upgrading the engine of your car from a 4-cylinder to a V8 at the end of a muscle building phase, and it'll just need more fuel forever to keep it going. So it's part of the process. Just got to get used to just being in a t-shirt and a vest for a little bit, but we'll never let you get too far away from that kind of being able to see visual abs. And the fact is this: if you are doing a muscle building phase, it's because you've done a successful fat loss phase for long enough to earn the right to actually do it, and your body probably needs that replenishment as well to reduce inflammation, improve your health, like all these little things that you're probably not thinking of. You're just thinking of the aesthetics. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much. Thanks, James.
No problem. Cheers, Marcus.
Does anyone else have any questions for James?
Just a little quick one. Thanks, James. I found that really interesting. There was loads in it. Just have to take out. So thanks a lot. I think one of the things I want to ask is, you talked at the very, very beginning about why you signed up for the whole, like why we've all signed up, I guess. But I just wondered, what did you think then you could achieve versus what you've actually achieved? Because we all talk about like the hills, don't we? We climb
totally,
then we look for the next one. I'm just wondering what you thought then versus what you sort of see now and where it goes.
That's a really good question because when I signed up, it wasn't to do actually what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
It was literally just to regain strength and fitness. My job is actually really physical, in terms of like the potatoes weigh about 150 kilos to move.
Right.
And we generally employ females. It's heavy work, it's lifting.
Yeah.
And when I first started it, going from an office job for 12 years, my back lasted about 6 weeks in that job. And I was literally just laid out in the shop. So initially it was, I needed my strength for work, and my fitness was pretty naff at the time. So it was just a case of getting back on track. I didn't think we'd be where we are today. And now fully addicted to wanting to really look my best. And next year I'm coming for it. It's interesting. Really good question because didn't intend to kind of have a full body transformation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally does. And I think that's the key, isn't it? Because I think, there's, when I first started on it, for the first few weeks, it was a bit novelty. Not that it was a diet, I'm on the fat loss stage still, but it's not that you're on a diet, but it is a bit of a novelty. You do, it's all a bit different. And you sort of realize this is the lifestyle change.
Yeah, totally.
And so you think, oh, I'm doing this for the rest of my life in theory. You know what I mean? So it's getting that mental shift, and I'm still working through it. You have some good weeks and bad weeks and stuff, but yeah, it's just interesting where we all start out on why we sign up, and then where it takes us. To just listen to the story is really inspirational. So well done, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, love that. That's a really good question, Rob. Anyone for any more, guys? Whilst we're on, now's your chance. If you've got anything at all you want to ask James.
It'll be 18 months before I'm on again.
I've just got a quick one, James.
Yeah. Hi, Sam.
Hi, James. What motivates you now compared to like when you first started?
Oh, good one.
Oh,
surely it's changed a little bit.
Yeah, it has. It's just my own personal, before it was just like health markers and things like that, but now I really want to look bigger and amazing, the best. It feels, you just want to feel good all the time. And it wasn't about like vanity and aesthetics really 18 months ago, but now it's becoming that, which is fine. But I've never been happy. I've always been like a skinny guy really. And now I can see next year I'm actually probably going to look with some decent size. So it's just my own motivates me now is just every like push in that gym. And when you know, in the changing rooms, you think, yeah, I can see the arms, and you can see it happening. You can like physically see it coming now. And that's what I was trying to touch on earlier about things click into place later on in the program. You know, you don't realize why you're doing something early on in the stage until maybe in the build phase, and you think, oh yeah, that's the reason. Yeah, because you know, I've managed to get those 40 kilo dumbbells off the floor today, whereas I would have never have lifted these weights 18 months ago. And especially my back. And my back, for the record, I have no issues with at all.
Yeah, so, I guess you've got the confidence now, and you can
well,
push past those limiting beliefs.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because I always just thought, well, you can't, you know, I'll never squat, I'll never deadlift with my back. And granted, we've navigated around those in the early stages, and James picked probably, you know, better exercises for me. But now we can squat and deadlift and hopefully get some decent weight on them in the new year. So
yeah, I think the GPs still recommend to not lift, don't they, a lot of the times?
Yeah, they say don't eat fish and chips as well. So
I was just going to ask that. Do you ever eat fish and chips?
No, unfortunately, only when the new fish arrives to try it, but unfortunately not. Or fortunately not. Whichever way you want to look at that.
What about the deep fried pigs in blankets, mate?
Yeah, well, the sprouts are even better.
Well, it all sounds like mischief to me, but
yeah.
But yeah, love it. Well, James, that was really, really insightful, and I just want to say thank you from me personally, and I can probably speak on behalf of everyone else. Just thank you so much for your time tonight, and just sharing this insight as well. And I know we're coming for it in 2025, 100%.
Oh, yeah, this is it.
Done deal.
There's not as many holidays, you'll be pleased to know.
Watch this space, guys. We're going for it. Guys, thank you so much. Call next week tonight. Next week, as normal, we've got a couple of big calls lined up for the rest of the year. Got some stuff on vision planning that we're going to be going through. Also going to be covering some of the other aspects that are early next year. So I hope to see you on these calls throughout. I'll also be in touch with regard to just the timetabling through Christmas, because I'm sure you probably got a couple of questions as to regard to Christmas Day, that kind of thing, just how they navigate it. Okay, so have a wonderful evening, everyone. If there's any questions, let me know, and I'll speak to you all soon.
Cheers, guys. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thanks, James.
Thank you,
everyone.
Bye.